Hello everyone, this is the third part of the Spring Security videos. In this video, we will add OAuth2 social login functionality to our project. We will add login with Google and login with GitHub functionality to our project. And we also discuss about the flow of the authorization and authentication of OAuth2. If you didn't watch the previous videos, I recommend you to watch them. If you want to continue from this video, let me briefly introduce this project. In this project, we have all the necessary classes, repositories, entities, and configurations. We have config class, we have controller, details, entities, mappers, repositories, services, and service implementation. In this project, we have three endpoints. The one is the localhost 8080. It renders the home.html file, and the login endpoint, it renders the login.html file. And the third one is the user create endpoint. It renders us the signup.html file. And we also secured our endpoint with the Spring Security. In this security config class, let me close this one. We have the password encoder bean. We use this one for the encode the password. And we have the security filter chain bean. In this security filter chain bean, we define other than user create and the login page, every endpoint secured and should be authenticated. And for the login form, we use the custom login form, which is the login.html file. And the default success URL, we use the localhost 8080, and the redirect is true. And we also have the application.yaml file. In this YAML file, we have the data source configuration and GPA configuration. So let's start the application and see the application from the browser. As I said, other than login endpoint and user create endpoint, every endpoint secured. So if I visit localhost 8080, it redirects me to login page. Since we don't have any user, we couldn't log in. So I can use this sign up link. It take me to the user create page. I can create user from here. Let's put first name, last name, and username, and the password 123 and 123. Click the sign up button. It will create the user and store it, and then redirect to the login page. If I log in with the created user, password 123, then I can see the localhost 8080, which is the default success URL. In this video, we will add this login with GitHub and login with Google functionality to our project. And we will discuss about the flow of the authorization and authentication of the OAuth2. Then let's get started. To use OAuth2 social login functionality, we need to add OAuth2 client dependency to our project. So go to browser, then go to Spring Initializer website, then add dependency. Let's search the OAuth2 client dependency, then click the explore, then POM file, then copy this dependency, Spring Boot starter OAuth2 client, copy this one, then go to project and go to POM file, then paste the dependency here, then refresh. After add the dependency, we need to add configuration. Let's go to security config class, Let me close this one. Then before the form login, let's add the OAuth2 login here. Let's say dot OAuth2 login. Let me use customizer dot with defaults. This customizer with default will give us the default login form and default success URL. If I restart the application, I will get an error. Let's see the error, then continue. Because we add OAuth to client dependency and we also configure the OAuth2 login, but we don't have any registration for OAuth2 client, so we get this error. To use OAuth2 social login, we need the OAuth2 client registration. So go to application.yaml file, and let me close this one also. And the same level with the data source and GPA, we should give the registration here. Let's say security and then auth2 and then client and then let's say registration, and for registration let's say Google for the provider, and then client ID and client secret. Since we don't have any application registered on Google, we don't have the client ID and client secret. At the moment, leave them blank. After the configuration, we will create client ID and client secret. Let's also give GitHub here, client ID and client secret. If you go to registration, you can see all the fields here. In the registration, we should provide the provider, client ID, client secret, and client authentication method, client authorization grant type, and redirect URL and scopes. So since we use the predefined provider like Google, GitHub, and Facebook Okta, we don't need to give the provider and the client authentication method and authorization grant type and redirect URL and scopes. Only thing we need to define is client ID and client secret. So let's create the client ID and client secret for GitHub and Google. Go to browser and go to console.cloud.google.com. I will leave the link below at the description. First, we should create one project in this page. If you click this drop down button, you can see all the project you created. Since we don't have any project, we can create project from the new project button. Then give the project name. We can give any name for the project name. I will say security demo, and for the organization we can leave blank, then create. It will create the project. Then go to this select project button and select the newly created project. Then click on the navigation menu, choose the APIs and services, then go to credentials. We can create client ID and client secret here. Then click the create credential, then choose the OAuth2 client ID. In order to get the client ID and client secret, we should configure the consent screen first. The consent screen is the screen that the user can get the information about your application and give grant access to your application for their information. So let's configure the consent screen first. For the user type, we can use external and create. For the app name, you can give any name. I will give security demo. This name will shown to the user, and we should give the user support email. And if you have any logo, you can add logo here, the browse button. And we should add developer contact information. Let's copy the email address and paste here. Then save and continue. In this step, you can add the scopes here. If you click the add or remove scopes, you can add these scopes. If you didn't add any scopes, it will give the default scopes, so we can leave it blank. Then save and continue. We don't need to add the user. Then save and continue. The consent screen is done. We can create client ID and client secret. Go to credentials, then go to create credential, then choose the OAuth2 client, then choose the application type. We should choose the desktop app because our application only runs on localhost, so we should choose the desktop app, otherwise it will give error. If your application runs on the cloud, you must choose the web application at that time. So in this project, I will choose desktop app. Then for the name, you can give any name. So I will give security demo for desktop. It means security demo app for desktop credential, and create. It will give you the client ID and client secret. You can download JSON format, or you can click the OK button. You can create credential as much as you want. You can choose the create button, then continue, then choose the security demo for desktop credential, then copy the client ID, then go to project, then go to application.yaml file, and for Google client ID, paste the client ID, then copy the client secret and paste here. Now the registration for Google is done. Let's create the client ID and client secret for GitHub registration. Go to browser and open your GitHub account. Click the user icon here, then select the settings, scroll down, go to developer settings, then select the OAuth apps, then register a new application. Give the application name. I will give security demo. You can give any name. And the home page, we should write localhost 8080, and you can give the description and authorization callback URL. We should give the localhost 8080, then click the register application. It will give the client ID. Let's create the client secret. Let's create, copy the client secret and go to application. Let's paste the client secret and copy the client ID and paste here. If you have any logo, you can upload the logo here, then you can see this logo in the consent screen. Let me upload the logo. then update application, then go to application. Let me restart and see. Application up and running. Go to browser, then refresh. This time the application redirects me to the OAuth2 login page. It shows us the login with GitHub and Google. Let's continue with GitHub. It shows my logo here and the application name security demo. Let's authorize. Then it redirect the success URL. Let's try with Google. Let me try with incognito. Then let's say localhost 8080 and then continue with Google this time. Then give the email address, then give the password. Then we can get the localhost 8080 endpoint. The social login functionality works perfectly in our application, but we lost our custom login page. So let's combine the social login with our custom login page. Then go to application. Let me close this one and this one also. Then go to templates and go to login.html file. Let me close this one. Then scroll down. Then right after security demo, paste the 2 rows for Google and GitHub. Let me paste this one. In this line, I add 2 tag, one for the GitHub and one for the Google. And for the redirection, we add the OAuth2 authorization and GitHub. For the Google, I will redirect the link to the OAuth2 authorization Google. It will redirect the user to the Google and GitHub login page. And I will give the login Google icon here and GitHub icon here. Let me also paste the image. Go to static and paste images here. I added this GitHub and Google logos. Let me also add the CSS files for this GitHub and Google. Go to CSS files and paste here for Google and GitHub.css. And let me close this one. That is the modification for GitHub and Google. And we also need to change the security config class. Then go to security config and close this one. As you know, we add images to the static folder, so we should give access these files. Let's give access these files slash image and slash everything inside. Then we need to customize this OAuth2 login. Let's delete this one and use lambda OAuth2 and then OAuth2 dot login page. For login page, now we can use the login form because we add the Google and GitHub link here. And let's give the default success URL. For default success URL, we can use the same for our custom login form. Let's give slash. And for redirection, let's use true. That's all for the configuration. Then let's restart application and see. Go to browser and localhost 8080. Now we got the final UI. Let me try with GitHub first. It seems to remember the caches. Let me try the incognito. Let's say localhost 8080. Then try with GitHub. Give the email address. Write the password. Yes, let me close this one and let's try with Google. And give the password. Yes, it works. So let's discuss the flow of the authorization of and authentication of OAuth2. In this flow, we have users, application, OAuth service, resource service, and resource. First, the resource owner or user click on the login with GitHub or Google button. Then the application make a request with the client ID, scopes, and redirect URL to the OAuth server. Then OAuth server redirect the user to the login page. If the user or resource owner provide the correct username and the password, the OAuth server will show the consent page to the user. Then after the user give the grant access to their information to the application, then the OAuth server return back with the code to the application. Then the application make a request to token with the client ID and client secret and code and redirect URL, and OAuth server responds with the token. Then the application requests the resource with the token and request payload. Then the resource server validate the token. If the token is valid, then it go to resource and get the response and return the response to the client. If we want to see what we get from the OAuth server, we can get the information from security context holder. Let's do that, then see what we get if we log in with Google and GitHub. Go to project, then go to home.html file. Then after the h1 tag, add one paragraph here. Then for the text, let's say th text. Let's add the timeleaf here. Let me paste. Then th text. Let's say authenticated user. Then let's combine with the authentication principle, $, then curly braces, hash, then authentication dot principle. It will give the logged in user information from the security context holder. Let's restart and see. Then go to browser, then refresh. Then let's try with Google. As you can see, we can get the current logged in user's information from the security context holder. We can get this information because the user grant access to our application for their information. Then the Google provide this information to our application. That's all for this video. In the next video, we will add social sign-up functionality to our project. If you are following this project, the source code is in my GitHub. I will leave the link below at the description. See you all